Thank you, Frank. Welcome everybody to the second day of this conference on alternative Arab dramaturgies. I'm Martin Carlson. I'm one of the committee directing the conference, and I'm delighted to see you here. And congratulate you on getting up early in the morning to come to this first session. I want to begin with a few remarks about the subject of the conference and the CUNY Graduate Center, because this represents, it seems to be, a very important and unique convergence of interests, and I just want to speculate about that and place it historically a little bit. I do notice that my opening remarks have been entitled, this is not my choice, but it's great, Arab Dramaturgies, a Multiplicity of Options. I find that really quite striking and interesting, and that gives me a launch to go back to say, I want to go back 20 years, and at that time, at the very end of the last century, we held a special conference here at the Graduate Center on the subject of contemporary theater in Egypt. Dalia Basuni, who is here, helped organize that, was a graduate student at the time, and taught me everything I knew at that time about the Egyptian theater. She did a wonderful thesis on Arab-American performing artists. There was and is a whole group of very important women performers in New York, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. We had a one-day conference. It was really a very striking event in many ways. As far as I know, it was the first academic conference held in North America about the modern Arab theater, which is really quite remarkable when you think about it. And I think back with this idea of multiple options. At that time, there was not even one option. That is to say, by and large, within the American academic community, if you asked people about the Arab theater, the answer would be, what Arab theater? Or is there an Arab theater? And as evidence of that, you have only to go back to the standard dramatic text that all graduate students and undergraduates in theater history read at that time, which was Oscar Brockett's History of the Theater, which frankly states there is no theater in the Arab world. It says that, and it explains that the reason for that is that Islam prohibits any representation. Totally false, of course, on a number of counts. But that was taught and believed universally, or almost universally, in the American theater at the end of the last century, and indeed up until that time. Then, around the turn of the century, more and more that claim began to be challenged and refuted, and particularly after 9/11, when there was a real interest in learning more about the Arab world, which extended, of course, then not only to its politics, but to its culture. Then, much to the astonishment of many American theater scholars, they discovered there was, in fact, a thriving theater tradition in much of the Arab world, which dated back for a century or more. We had, when we had our conference at the end of the century, here at the Graduate Center, three of the leading dramatists of the Egyptian theater at that time, Leonard L. Romley, Kamel Maksud, and Alfred Farag, and that in itself is really quite remarkable. These now are well-known major figures of the last generation, and that we would have noticed them, invited them to New York, was really quite a remarkable thing. And the proceedings of that conference, I found on my recent trip to Egypt, are well known and circulated and are still looked back as an important document in understanding and documenting the modern Arab theater. At that time, most of us who were becoming aware of such theater were only aware of the Egyptian theater. And as time passed, our vision expanded, and we realized not only is there a very important and thriving theater in Egypt, which goes back many generations, but in many other parts of the Arab world, in Iraq, in Syria, in Tunisia, in Algeria, and so on. So now we can talk about a variety and options in the theater in a way that would have been quite unimaginable 20 years ago. The Graduate Center in general, and the Siegel Center in particular, have played a key role in illuminating those options for the American and international academic community. We have published a whole series of books and translations of Egyptian playwrights, Syrian playwrights like Saadallah Wanous, who many consider the most important of the 20th century Arab playwrights. The plays of Jalila Bakar, or some of the plays of Jalila Bakar from Tunisia, who many consider to be the most important living Arab American or Arab playwright. We have also established in 2005 here at the Graduate Center an ongoing journal, ArabStages Online, which appears twice a year and which is continually a source of information for interviews with Arab theater artists, with reviews of Arab plays, translations of new plays, historical articles about the Arab theater. Again, a kind of thing that was totally impossible to access just a couple of decades ago. Now, all of that, which provides many, many options that were not available very recently in the past in terms of study and interest, I have to mention another very major part of the interest of CUNY and the development of this work here, and that is the diasporic Arab community. Very important from the very beginning, as CUNY and the Siegel Center have been involved with making more available to the New York public the work of Arab theater artists, has been the enormously important contribution of Arab American theater artists. Again, I must give enormous credit to Dahlia, who did extremely important pioneering work in Arab American women performance artists, who really were the grounding of modern Arab American theatrical work in New York. This is a very important contemporary movement. A number of these artists have spoken at the Graduate Center. A number of them have performed in the Siegel Center. And in ArabStages, we are also very strongly interested, not just in theater in the Arab world, but in the increasingly important diasporic theater, because of course today, with the huge refugee population, which includes obviously theater artists. There are very important diasporic Arab theaters in places like Spain, in Sweden, in Denmark, in France, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, and all of this provides yet other options in this enormously complex world of different dramaturgies presently developing. Among the Arab American performing artists, certainly one of the most important and one of the first really to achieve major distinction on the New York stage, I'm happy to say is with us today, Betty Shemaiah. And it's my very great pleasure to introduce Betty to you. Many of you know her already or know her work. The Black Eye is her most famous work at the New York Theater Workshop, but she's had a number of plays, some 15, I think, altogether, and has been a very important force in the Arab American theater community now for the last, well, really much of this century. So I'll turn this over to Betty now. She will address you for a bit, and then afterward, perhaps we'll have time to talk about this. Thank you.